Well, we just started with the basics to learn how to sew, and we went to different markets in Amsterdam, like the Noordermarkt and the Dappermarkt, and just went there to go to find fabrics, and we made like simple tops and shorts from that. And actually, Sanne, my partner, she teaches me how to sew. So that's how we started, just by a sewing machine and find fabrics and make the clothes. We made an Instagram channel, Facebook channel, and we first started to sell our clothes only through social media. And by then you had like a really large Facebook group with a lot of girls in the Netherlands where you could offer your clothes. So that's what we did, and then it started to roll, and we got more orders. So that's when we decided, okay, we can't, like, we were also studying by then, so we can't do law school and make the clothes at the same time, so we need a producer. So then actually we met Fatma from the Chamber of Commerce, and she helped us to find the right producer connections in Turkey, and we flew to Turkey to Istanbul, and there we found a producer who made our first collection.
Wow, great, that sounds good. But it was already like a while ago that you started, right? So
yeah, like 4 years ago.
Yeah, and you told me you started without a lot of money. Eh? You basically started sewing and grew from there, like, or
yes, that's true.
In a very self-bootstrapping way. Per, how do you see that now? Because there's a lot of people in the fashion industry that are kind of like struggling at this moment to get on social media. How important is social media at this time?
Basically, I'm a big fan of social media. I think it's very important. We will know within most likely the 12th month there will happen so much. So it's important for companies today to see also other opportunities. And one opportunity is, I want to share with you some news from last week. Last week, the Fashion Week in Sweden was cancelled by the fashion organization. Why? Because they didn't find the companies, the brands, sustainable enough. That is a clear message, and that is an opportunity, because it is a disruptive and a very challenging market. But that message that they cancelled the whole fair because it was not good enough, for you being entrepreneurs, small flexible companies, sustainability is one of many great opportunities. I will come back to that. But social media is important, but you have to work with social media in a certain way, and I think we will come back to that later on in this discussion. I find very many companies that I meet, they are very focused on social media. Everything is about social media, and I ask them why. Why do you do this? Well, we have to. Everybody's running the social media train, but you should know why you should do social media. Maybe you should do something completely different. And that is part of the other part of the business, which I find even more important, which I will come back to in a minute.
Perfect. Rafa, do you, because you actually do research, you investigate a lot of consumer behavior, what do you see regarding sustainability and transparency? Is that the main driver at the moment?
Yeah, I completely agree with Bear. Sustainability is one of the most important pillars currently, and what you see with social media, and I also saw the talks, most of the talks were about social media, how to promote your product, but actually it starts with producing a product and trying to do something better for the world. We have seen in the last 20 years that the whole fashion industry, the whole textile industry is quite polluted. And well, actually, I think the last year and even last year, we have seen on TV how actually the products are being produced. So the consumer nowadays are asking for a sustainable product. with sustainability, it doesn't go along with not only the fiber, but if you look at sustainability, there are 3 pillars: people, planet, and profit, and try to comply to those 3 pillars. Besides sustainability, what we have seen within the European Union is that there has been some regulations, not regulations, but there has been like a policy, and that means that with all the member states, all the 28 member states should be in 2050 in a circular fashion economy. And that actually means that we have to reuse our garment and we have to recycle our garment. So I think for a startup it would be a good opportunity to think about that. What we have seen currently is like the second-hand garment industry is upcoming. People and generation nowadays, they're open for second-hand garment. And the best thing, my advice would be for a startup is combine a new collection with clothes, second-hand clothes. Please try to reuse clothes and implement it in your designs. Or if you're a retailer, try to do something on both sides, second-hand and also new production.
I'm going to interrupt you here because that's what we hear a lot, right? But then when I walk through the streets, I see Primarks are full, you know, and not only in fashion, actions are full. You started your brand, Milou. Did you start your brand with sustainable clothes, or were you more price focused because you had like young girls as your target group? So.
Well, we decided to do both because we only work with like leftover fabrics from the markets. But by then it was not really conscious choice because I didn't got really into sustainability by then. But we do also bought like vintage items and we sold it in our shop. So we did started sustainable actually, but it was not a conscious choice by then, or not marketing or strategically. It was just by
Yeah, it was what you want. You
Yeah,
thought kind of like a
yeah.
thing what you wanted to do, and that's when you
because
started.
it's cheap and it was a good way to just start and find out what does the customer like, what does she want. So that was our way to find out. Yeah.
Okay, good. And Radha, how do you see that development? Because people have to make choices. So I hear a lot of times that fashion designers, they feel like, okay, maybe I need to lower my price, or I need to compete maybe with certain chains, and how can you stay sustainable?
Well, currently, I think price will be an issue. There's no discussion about that. Price is always an issue. But if I compare, and I'm almost 20 years into the fashion industry on an educational side, what I have seen is 20 years, 50 years, 20 years ago, you would see sustainable products were priced approximately around 100 euros. Well, if you currently go into, like, let's say the HEMA, you will see the difference between a sustainable t-shirt and a not sustainable t-shirt is just a price difference of €1. And a few months I ordered like a skirt, and it was the fabric was 80% recycled PET bottles. Is that a word? Yeah. The PET bottles, and 30% recycled cotton. The price of the skirt was only 40 euros. So there are no issues regarding the price anymore. It's just like the consumer is asking about it, and what you can see, it's upscaling. And so, well, to compete within the fashion industry, it's very important to be transparent to the consumer, because the consumer is asking for information. The consumer is, there has been awareness creating among the consumers that the textile industry is polluted. And the consumer doesn't see it as their responsibility. It's the responsibility of the industry. That's what the consumers are telling us every time when we conduct consumer survey and we ask the consumer, okay, if you think we should change the whole industry, how can we do that? And they're willing to pay, let's say, approximately 10 to 50% more than average. But if they can make a difference in the industry, they are willing to do it. And I agree with you. You see shops like Primark, there's still a huge group who are buying over there, but I think Primark is also making steps. If I compare it with 10, 50 years ago, they're still making steps.
Thank you very much. If I look at that development, do you think it's still possible as a small company to set up your brand now at this moment? Because you were just talking about Philippa K, that is like rebranding. So the big brands suffer with this, I imagine. How do you see the possibilities?
Yes. First, I want to comment a little bit the previous talk. The thing is, sustainability is not a matter of if yes or no. Within a very short time, the politicians will set the law. So to be in the fashion industry is to be sustainable. So it's just a matter of time. So sustainability is a default. That's something that you all have to realize and that you have to be. Otherwise you can't be long-term in the fashion industry. But you can use, again, as an entrepreneur, as a small company, you can use the sustainability because that will happen a lot. In the future, it will be less focus on product, it will go to services. And the services around the product has also to be sustainable. And there's opportunity. The big companies today, I used to say there's a lot of zombies out there today. The big companies, they don't know what to do. They are big, they worked in a certain way for many years, and they are not flexible. Small companies is an advantage today. You can adjust quick. You can grip this opportunity of sustainability in many different ways and use that as a business advantage. So that's one thing. And talking about, again, the price about sustainability, so that means that the price will go the same direction because it will be the same condition for all companies in the fashion industry. And then what comes on top of that price is again what you as a company, what you put in as a brand value, what you give the consumer, what they find. I want to identify myself with this brand, because this brand stands for sustainability, it stands for this and that and that. And that motivates customers today and tomorrow to pay what it costs. So price is not an issue, as I see it.
Okay, but still I think there's a lot of people that buy your clothes as well. You sold the company, by the way, so you got out of the business. That also still fill up their closets with H&M, with Zara, with the bigger brands. Do you see among that group also changes now that they're like more looking for brands that have a story, that are sustainable and that pay more?
Yes, that's actually why I quit, because we were on a journey to find out how we could make the brand actually sustainable, because we just started with producing in Turkey and also fabrics there, and we went to Portugal to find out how we can make the brand sustainable with fabrics and production. But then we found out that the customer doesn't want to pay more, because our customer was like students, starter girls around like 18 till 22, and they don't actually have a lot of money. So they want to buy it. They want to make sustainable choices, but still it doesn't have to be doesn't have to cost them a lot of more than the regular brands like Zara, H&M. And Primark, but I do see that they buy a lot of more vintage clothes because it gets more cool, I think. So I think that's a really good change that I see. But for myself, I couldn't sell the clothes anymore because it was not sustainable enough. So that's why I quit the brand.
Okay, perfect. But just look a little bit at starting up your brand. There's people here in the room that are at this moment making their designs. Maybe they already have their fashion label. Let me just do a quick poll here. Who has a fashion brand that's in the room? Could you please raise your hands? All right. Let me just ask here. I see a hand. Could you stand up, please? Could you please say your name, what your fashion label is, and if you're sustainable working already, and how you see that, if you see that?
My name is Miranda van Os, difficult name in English. I have a 1 year brand now. It's called Blocky Shirts, and it's specially made for tall teenagers who are grown out of children's clothes but are not having the body of an adult. So it's longer and smaller and only in tops because sizes in trousers is a little bit too much.
Perfect. And do you produce sustainable already?
Yeah. Because it's children's clothes, I really look for how do I say it? That it's all children friendly. So all the fabrics is 100% cotton. It's all natural products. Even the dye that I used are like European recliner.
Difficult all of a sudden in English, and then you get the mic in your face. I understand, but at least we get the attention up a little bit because it could go anywhere. So that's a good example of somebody actually implementing these strategies and started a year. So I think that proves a little bit your point of view in there. Another thing we sometimes see is that people are very creative. They start their brands. My question to you guys is creativity enough to become successful as a fashion entrepreneur? And maybe you already did it. Maybe Per can say something about that, because you're more from the business side, but...
Yeah, well, I think creativity is a start, is a base for everything, actually, and that differentiates brands from brands. So the creativity is the heart of the whole business. It's extremely important. And actually, what I want to add a little bit what I talked about at the beginning with the social media and today it's very modern to build an organization which is consumer-centered. So consumer-centered, that's important, that's very important. But what's the most important of all, I would say 75%, and that's what I see. I had the opportunity to talk to people, the watch company Daniel Wellington. They started 2011, and Philip Dusander, he decided, he got a vision. I want to build a watch company, watch brand. If you Google watches, you get 1 billion hits. It's an extremely competitive market. But he decided to do this, and I asked the people around him, the heart of the business. So how come you became so successful? Phil put in all his savings, 20,000 euros in his company. After 3 years, they went from 0 to 250 million euro in turnover and 100 million in profit in 3 years. It's an amazing story. And I asked these guys around him, what do you see as the most important? Is it, you're fantastic, you're the master of Instagram, you're fantastic at social media. No one mentioned social media. No one mentioned Instagram at all, nothing. What they mentioned was the way we have it on the office, the culture Philip has created. We are allowed to fail. He said, do it. Do whatever you want to create what we should create. We do it together, and it's okay to do mistakes. It's okay to fail. So that energy and that vision, that was what they say themselves took them from 0 to 250 million euros in 3 years. So that says something about, and that is my experience too, and I want to share that with you. I talk about creativity. The design department is the heart. That's so important. Flipper K should never be where they are today if we didn't have these designers, the heart of the business. Then you have to add up with all the other skills. But again, my experience is, talking to Daniel Wellington, talking to a number of companies, 75% of the ingredients that differ successful companies from not successful companies, that is the culture, the vision, the energy you create together. That can take you through everything, basically. I've seen it very closely, and sustainability is important, and social media is important, everything important, but this power to release your intellectual horsepower, that is the main difference, that's the core, that will take you further. That's what I see. I want to say that.
Great, great. Is that also influencing the consumer's point of view? Because we're also aiming at consumer behavior in the fashion. Maybe nowadays there's other channels that consumers use that also makes it easier to reach the consumer and to create a bond with your consumer. We know the traditional fashion, which works with certain collections. Do you see any changes? This is more a question for you, Nata, because...
Well, actually, in what way? Consumer demand, or just the experience there?
Yeah, because the behavior of consumer changes, they get more powerful. They get more direct contact with the brands, also the smaller brands, through social media. In what perspective is the playing field changing?
Actually, what Milou actually mentioned is that they are open for second-hand item vintage. Well, I don't know if vintage is the right word, but vintage can be...
Circular economy.
But they're open for, the generation now is open for vintage clothes, and what they actually would like to have is a personalized item. And I was just updating my material for the university, and actually when you look at the 7 P's, I think you all know the 7 P's of marketing, and what you nowadays see, and it was an article of I think quite famous marketer, and he actually rewrote the 7 P's, and he actually mentioned is that it's important to implement in the 7 P's personal. So it should be personal product. It should be personal marketing, and everything that's related to the marketing besides the social media. Social media is obviously an item of the marketing, but it should be personalized. And I think nowadays what you see with the youth is that the new generation, they're asking for personalized products.
This is very interesting that you mentioned that, because, and I know you also agree on that, a lot of times it comes from your own network, but how important is it to have a network and to start with that network, your personal network? When you started yourself already a couple of years ago, did you identify yourself with your target group? Or?
Yes, totally. That's, I think, why we had the success, because we were our own target group. So we really know what was going on, and we asked our friends, do you like this, do you like that? We used like polls on Instagram, and then our friends told their friends told their friends, and in Amsterdam, like when there's something new upcoming brand, and everybody talks about it, and then you have like a few hundred followers on Instagram added in a few days. So yeah, I think your own network is where it actually starts, and if you are your own target group, you can really get into the to your customer the best way. So yeah, I think that's what made our brand successful.
So a challenge would be if you would aim for another segment, because we hear a lot of times it's difficult to compete with Zara, with H&M, with certain brands. So you might want to go for a higher segment, but then you come for a challenge to sell your product actually to people that maybe you don't know yet, or that are from another category. Can you explain on that?
I would like to add something else, because I think what we are currently losing is the fact that Europe is actually aging, and what we see is that the retailers currently are focusing on the newer generation, but don't forget that especially in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Italy, and in Spain, the whole population is aging. So don't forget that the 50+ group, the consumer group, is a very large group, and they have more to spend than, well, the Primark shoppers, but they are looking for other products, and they are into sustainability, but also comfortable fabrics as well. And
would you say that for this group then sustainability and transparency will be more important?
Sure, for sure. But also the fabrics as well. It should be comfortable. Everything should be. And I know that because I'm 50 plus, so I'm always looking for comfortable fabrics as well. So, and I think that most of the retailers are currently, just forgetting the consumer group of the 50 plus. And I think for a retailer it will be a good challenge to look in those groups.
Very good. I see you nodding. You want to compliment something on that?
Yeah, I think that's actually true because I see myself now. I'm more conscious about the choice I make to clothing when I was 21. So you see, when you get older, you want better fabrics, better quality. But I think that's about age. When you're younger, you don't really think about the consequences your consumer behavior makes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so actually these are trends that are certain opportunities for smaller companies, probably, because the bigger brands, they are more difficult to change, maybe to organize their production. They have a certain set of margins. If we look at how the sales go, you sold a lot directly to the consumers as well?
Yes, in the beginning we did.
Yeah. Do you think, in your opinion, that, or this is a question that goes for all of you, would it be more important to focus on your Instagram and your direct sales, or to work through a traditional channel with agents and retailers? What would be the apparent choice here? What do you prefer?
You have to see it in two ways. I mean, you have to look at it in the short term or the longer term. In the long run, I believe that agents and distributors will disappear. It will be completely different in the future. If we really look some years from here now, up to 2025, then the whole market will be completely different. For instance, I believe it will be, it's a long story, but for instance, one example is that the brands will be the customers of the stores. You know, the future e-commerce is physical. The future e-commerce is physical. So what happens online now will happen more and more in the real world. And referring again to Don Wellington, he was mastering Instagram, social media, 5-6 years ago. And that was also possible. Today, it looks different. What does Don Wellington do today? He invests in 300 new physical stores. And the reason why he do that is because he's amazing. He really has a view for what's coming up, trends. And regards to marketing, regards to social media, e-commerce will be physical. So in the long run, that's something you should keep in mind. So what I do with the companies I work with, I said you have to have a kind of meta strategy. The meta strategy is a strategy that consists of two parts. That is a short-term strategy, maybe 12 months, 24 months, and the longer run. Because the market is so disruptive, so you have to be flexible and also have a plan for the long run. But to answer that question, in the short run, I think it's important to focus on social media for sure, but you have to do it not as a default decision, something you do because everyone else is doing it. You have to find your own way. And I used to say to companies, it's much better that you don't run after social media. It's better that social media runs after you. Do something interesting. Do something completely unexpected. Elaborate. Because that's an opportunity for you as entrepreneurs and small companies today. You can elaborate. You can do things that the big companies never should do. Björn Borg, the Swedish Björn Borg, the underwear company, they were so scared to lose business. They were more scared to lose business than to gain new business. So they were stuck in that, the business was going down, and they were stuck into the underwear business. Until one day, 2 years ago only, someone came into the head office and said, well, why are you doing this? Everybody, customers, companies, everybody around you, look at you as a sportswear brand, and you are constantly thinking, yeah, but we are so, this is our niche, this is what we do, and this is what we're best in. But somehow they were able to get the guts to change that. And from that moment, they became the sportswear brand Björn Borg. And since then, it's taking off. But that's only one example of, this is a big company, but even for you as a small company to look at yourself and, you know, invent yourself and look at all the skills, all the possibilities and potential you have. Because everything starts there. It does not start with social media. It does not start with them. It starts with you. And that is the success factor. That is where you can be successful.
And I'm sure that there's going to be quite some small entrepreneurs that like to hear this and that want to believe it. But I was thinking about marketing budget. You started without large budgets, right? But you also see fashion brands, like the ones you mentioned, that they change the marketing budget for another goal and they can easily upscale. On a small scale, would that still be possible? Do you see that consumers can be reached, for instance, on a small scale by those brands that like to turn around their strategy, for instance? What can you?
If you look at the marketing budget, you should have a marketing budget. Marketing is a very important part of your whole business. But like Per actually said, just don't focus only on social media. It's one of the most cheapest marketing things you actually can use.
So current consumers, how should you reach them in your opinion? What would be the angle to make contact to them?
Go to events, festivals, and all those things. You have to go to them. Don't expect them to come to you. It's important what I have seen in the textile industry is that, for instance, if you have, let's say, a collection about streetwear, go to the festivals where the streetwear target group is coming. So try to go to them and don't focus only on social media. Let's go to festivals, fairs, and
I see you want to reply, Per.
Yeah, just add to that. I worked with a one-person company here in Amsterdam, and what she did, she actually took part of her collection to her dentist, to her hairdresser, to all opportunities, and you know that's the mentality a little bit that it's demanding to do something like that. I mean it's quite tough to show your own pieces, but that's a way of building from scratch. That's building, and it doesn't cost you more than the time, and that's what a lot of people are doing this, and that's how you step by step. Because the people around you, they not only know then your clothes, your brand, your collection, because they know you. They know what you stand for. They know who you are, and they like you probably for that. And then they will become ambassadors for your brand. That's the easiest way to get good ambassadors around your brand. So definitely, more than anything else, start with a very, very close network of friends and people around you.
Is that also something, I'm not sure if it's always been like that, or is it changing? What do you think? Because there's also people that say, well, I want to get this brand because I want to get a Louis Vuitton, or I want to get something really high end because of the brand. So they can start a corporate kind of brand. Are there changes that it's more individualistic maybe at the moment? Do you see certain?
Yeah, what we have seen is we did some consumer survey, and in accessories like bags and all those things, what we see is that consumers are asking for brands like Louis Vuitton, obviously, but not in clothing. Because in clothing, they really would like to have something personalized. We see that with shoes, with bags, and what we have seen is there's a second-hand market coming up regarding bags and shoes and all those things. So the consumer nowadays are open for second-hand those things. And there are quite some platforms coming up.
But second-hand brands that are already known, or can you start your own new brand?
I think you can start your own brand.
Scratch.
I know companies, startups who actually started in their garage with second-hand clothing, and it was just like a trade. You would hand in a new item, and then you could choose another one. and then they what they did is they refined it into you can bring your own stuff and put it on consignment. And if it's been sold, then it's been sold, and come back in 1 month time, and then you will get like a deal of 60-40%, something like that. So I know some startups who started with the garage, and then they actually expanded into shops. So
you think that's still possible at this moment?
It is.
Is it still possible to make a good living as well as a designer? You see a lot of people struggling, and maybe they go take side jobs again, they go do other things, design for other brands to make a living. How hard is it actually to?
Well, actually, if you look at the strategy, what you should do, and I think Berto already, he was talking about 3 years, but take into account that it will take 5 years. You have to do a strategy is always for 5 years. So you need a vision, you need a mission, and you need a strategy. So a strategy of 5 years will go.
And you sold it in 5 years already, but do you feel like at this moment it would be more difficult to do what you did? You know?
Yes, I think so, because as I already told, a big part of our success was using social media. Also for brands, I think it's very important to have a strong story. So the storytelling that the customer can identify themselves with your story. Because that was also the story of our brands, was that we wanted to inspire young women to follow their dreams just like we did, just without any knowledge, without any money, just start a fashion brand because we wanted to.
So you basically say, at this moment, I couldn't start the same way I did.
Yes, you can, but social media has changed along the years. It's way more hard to stand out on social media with all the new logarithms, and when we started, Instagram was like very new, and you can easily pop up in someone's feed, and by now we also did like Facebook advertising, but by now because of the changing logarithms, it's way harder, and also with all the competitors around. So yeah.
But competition, especially in fashion, that's nothing new. It's always been very tough and competitive, and I would say 10 years ago, 5 years now, you always have to calculate a number of years until you can see that your business model or business start to generate. That's pretty normal. So I think that's nothing new. And so what has essentially has happened in the last years is with social media, it has become more obvious for everybody. It is a competitive market, and it is competitive, of course, and maybe more competitive, of course. But again, what's for 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is the same now. You have to find your own DNA. You have to find your own way of building your brand. That can compensate for social media, but social media can never compensate for a bad business idea or a brand which is not taken care of. So that is my main message. The heart of the business is always number one.
All right, so looking here, who has some questions that, because basically what you're saying, if your idea is good, you know, there's loads of possibilities.
Yeah.
Here's someone that did it already. Is there somebody here that is actually trying really hard and has a question on how to approach a certain problem, how to reach the consumer that apparently is very much individualized now and is active socially, but it gets more competitive? Who has a brand here that just started? No one? Are you all shy? Here I see somebody.
Hi, good afternoon everybody. My name is Marisol. I actually don't have a brand, but I am a consultant in South America. And I see like some companies, some new designers, especially young people, they just like design, say, bags. But you say, well, you have to direct to your immediate surroundings, but let's say like your immediate surroundings don't have the financially the possibility to buy your product. They like you, they like your product, they believe it, they believe it's good quality, but they cannot pay for it. So, but you are struggling as a designer, you are trying to live from it, and you don't want to go back to have a side job. So what should you do? Like, you have to lower the quality of your product to be more accessible to your immediate surroundings and to be able to make some money. You have to design two products, one like a higher standard and one lower standard to have a backup. Or you should just quit your dream and do something else. What would be your suggestion? Because I see some people struggling, but they don't want to give up their dream. So you have to have two different products, stick to your own, and then how can you move on forward if you really have to stick to your product, good quality, but it's like more expensive.
Okay, good. And anyone feeling like they want to answer that?
Well, that's quite a complex question, of course, but first of all, I mean, there's a big number of people trying today because it's hard. And
so why do they fail? Why do they don't?
Well, the fashion industry. I used to say that to my friends, which were not in the fashion industry. I say, well, I can try to explain to you what it's about, but well, we do something else because it's so complex. It's so much in it. So it will take us 3 hours to explain because the fashion industry is complex. It's so many hands that you work together to get it right. So it is a challenging business to be in. It's always been like that. But I think when you are an entrepreneur or a brand with ambitions and you're trying and you don't get it where you want, of course, one thing to do is to get fresh eyes coming and look into your business, to get different opinions, and because again, look at the brand, big brand, Björn Borg, they were completely stuck. They were making underwear, nothing else, until someone from outside came in and showed them, look, this is your way, this is what you should do. And that is what I also see very often with small companies, that they are trying again the same. And if you do the same, you get the same answer. So you have to do it the other way around. You have to surprise yourself, and you have to look into yourself. You have to sometimes make a full stop, quit for a moment, skip one season, or do something completely different, just to get your brains into something else. Come back, look at it again, and then try something completely new. So then, what I see, add something. Sometimes you don't need to change everything. It could just be one small thing, one very important small detail that makes it happen.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, we're almost through the time for the panel discussion. Oh, here's a question.
Yes. I have a question that a lot of entrepreneurs which I guide, they ask me. So you're all experts, you have a lot of experience in the fashion field. So it's a very mainstream question, but where can we find buyers and agents? And does it work in this changing era to work with buyers or agents?
Okay, thank you very much. That's a bit related to the question before. Should you even work with agents, and how do you find one? How do you find your agent? So you go to a venue?
We didn't work with agents. I just called all of the stores in Netherlands myself. I just went on the website of a competitor and I would see where they were sold, and I was going to make a list of all those shops, and I am going to stalk them, call them, email them, and ask them, hey, can I come by to show you our collection? We're two girls from 21 who start their own fashion brand. And then the retailer said, okay, well, that sounds good, sounds interesting, because I don't know any girls from 21 yet who start their own fashion brand. So yeah, I'm curious, come by. So then we went by. So that's how we did our sales.
Yeah, perfect. Interesting as well, because you are also a lecturer at the university in Dubai. there's also brands that actually are looking abroad, they're looking at other markets, especially if they have maybe something in a higher segment. A lot of times they ask about Dubai. Can you tell a little bit about the differences between there, for instance, and here?
The Dubai market is quite complicated. On the other hand, they prefer brands in the higher segment like obviously Louis Vuitton and all those brands. But what we actually see is that there are 80% of the inhabitants are expats, and the expats expect the European brands. If you would like to conduct business with the Middle East, please go to the Chamber of Commerce, but also there's a fashion council over there. They call it the 3D in the designer district, and what they do is they connect designers with companies over there.
And if you look at it from a consumer point of view, right? We have Dutch consumers, we have consumers in other countries.
Yeah.
Do you see certain parallels when it comes to consumers abroad, or would you say?
Well, the design
things
is
are functionally
the design should be different because they like the, how do you call it, the glitter rings and all those things, and it should be yeah, we call it, the Dutch word is what's the, I don't know what the English word is. It's a little bit kitsch.
Kitsch.
It's kitsch.
Yeah, kitsch. I think most understand what we mean by that, right? Yeah.
So it should be glittery, gold, and silver, and stones.
So you say, okay, for consumers in other countries, in other markets,
Yeah, you have
the
to-
design
Should be
and
adapted.
should be different, at
Yeah.
least for Dubai.
It should be slightly adapted. Don't change your whole design, but just try to implement small changes. Like for the Middle East, you see the glittering, a lot of glittering, and for the expats, if your focus is on the expat, just leave your design as it is because there are a lot of Europeans over there, mostly from the UK, and also a big group of from the Netherlands as well.
And if you look at sustainability, sustainability, transparency, is Holland at the forefront of that?
No,
Or-
Europe is at the forefront. And I think there was an article last week in the Al Khalij, I think, Times, and Dubai is now implementing sustainability. So Europe is quite in the forefront regarding sustainability. Yeah.
Okay. Is it a trend you see also growing abroad? Like, would you say in a couple of years there will be the same in Dubai, or would you go totally?
Yeah, it will be. Because what we see is that the platform is upcoming regarding second-hand things, and they don't have like the how do you say that, the containers where you can put your second-hand things, but it's improving. And I think the H&M and the Zara's over there, they offer the possibility to hand in your second-hand clothes, and it wasn't well last year. So it's improving because the Fashion Council, it's a regulated council from the government over there. They are implementing sustainability and obviously also a circular fashion economy. That's the most important part.